Okay, there we go. Particle view of matter. Does anyone not have one of these? So 4 types of particles. Flip your paper over and see if you can name them without looking. Flip your paper over so you can't see them. See if you can name 4 types of particles. There are atoms. There are ions. There are molecules. There are formula units. What type of what type of elements are molecules made from? Made from nonmetals, yes. What type of bond is this? That is a covalent bond, yes. Here are some ions. How do we know that something is an ion? Yes, it has a charge. Okay, so this is an ion here. This is a different ion here. And you can see the important thing about them is that they have a charge. How can we tell the difference between a formula unit and a molecule? Because a formula unit looks a little bit like a molecule, but what do you notice inside of it? Adri? The formula unit is ionic. There is an ionic bond, and it is made of ions. What happens if you put a bunch of formula units together? Yeah, a bunch of formula units together is a crystal lattice. So a formula unit is made from a metal and a non-metal. Okay, so atoms. Atoms are neutral, right? Protons equal electrons. They're the smallest component of an element. What are the two types of atoms? You can have either metals or non-metals. And we'll deal with metalloids later on. Don't worry about it. It says next unit, but let's not worry about it too much. And so if we have our metals, let's take a look at what metals actually look like. They actually also form crystal lattices. Look at that. Yes, but they're metallic crystal lattices. What kind of bonding do we have in between these metal atoms? Yes. We have metallic bonds, yes. Some nonmetal elements are gaseous at room temperature. For example, the noble gases are, guess what? Gases. And they are the only ones that hang out as atoms. So this right here would be a noble gas. Do you remember why the other ones, the other elements, don't exist as single atoms? Yes. Pardon me? Not because they're heavier than air, but noble gases, here's helium. Here's our neon. Here's argon. Except for that electron should be on this shell. Why are these guys okay being single atoms, but fluorine, for example, is not? It doesn't have a full shell. So what does it have to do in order to become full? It has to gain one electron. So it'll either form an ionic compound by taking an electron from the metal, or it will share with a little buddy. Okay. Are we good to scroll? Scrolling along. Molecules are neutral. They are made of only what type of elements? Non-metals. How many atoms do you have to have? 2 or more. What kind of bonding is in molecules? Covalent. Can molecules be elements? Yes, as long as you have only one type of atom, or molecules can be compounds where we have 2 or more types of atoms. So let's look on the left-hand side of the page. We have molecules of elements. We have I2, P4, S8 looks like a little crown. It's got a little zigzag in between all the S's. And then we have O2. Oh, what kind of a bond is that? That's a double bond. How many electrons is that? 4 electrons, 2 pairs. This right here, this is caffeine. Crazy, yes? So molecules of compounds can get really, really complicated. All of these guys here, these are all ball and stick models. Can you imagine why they're called ball and stick models? Because here we have the ball and here we have the stick. Ball and stick models. We can also show molecules, however, as space-filling models. So we just don't show the bonds. This is actually more accurate, but it's harder to see the individual atoms. But this is what they would really look like. They're just sort of mushing into one another as those things overlap. Those are our molecules. Ions. How do you know that you have an ion? You have a charge. It's either going to be positive or negative. What does it mean if an ion is monatomic? That means it has one atom. If it is polyatomic, it has two or more atoms. Cations are positive, anions are negative. What type of element forms cations? Metals. What type of element forms anions? Non-metals. So we have cats have pos, so cations are positive. We have a negative ion, or onions make you cry, which is negative. Here we have a monatomic metal cation. Monatomic cation, one atom. Mono, one. Atom, atom. You can either show the charge inside the atom, or you can show it outside the atom, just beside it. What's the name of those ions? Na is called sodium, not sodide, sodium ion, and magnesium is called magnesium. Shocking. You can see again with our non-metal monatomic anion, we have chloride, which is negative. We can either show the charge inside or we can show it on the outside. How do we name Cl minus? Chloride. And how do we name O2 minus? Oxide. Excellent. Here are some polyatomic ions. How can you tell that they are polyatomic? What does poly mean? Poly means many or more than one. Polyatomic ions, what do they kind of look like? What other particle do they kind of look like? Like if I was to get rid of this bit here, and you just looked at this, what would you think that it was? That's a molecule. Basically, polyatomic ions are little molecules, but they have a charge. You can either show the charge with brackets or without brackets. You're not going to have to draw them, you just need to be able to recognize them. Yes? Many atoms, many atoms, many atoms with a charge. Ion, ion, ion. Okay. Formula units. Where do we find formula units? What kind of substances are formula units? They are ionic compounds. A single neutral unit of an ionic compound is called a formula unit. And if we put a bunch together, we get a ionic crystal lattice. Would you be able to draw a 2D slice of an ionic crystal lattice? Would you be able to draw a single formula unit? Yeah. Excellent. Could you recognize these guys as being crystal lattices? Yeah. Even though we don't have the plus and minus signs, we have alternating particles. So if you have alternating particles, that lets you know that you have a crystal lattice. But in a formula unit, you should expect to see the charges, because if I just drew like this and I didn't put charges in it, you would say that that is a molecule, right? If I didn't put charges in it. So with the formula unit, you have to know that there are charges there. Okay, so you have a review to do. There's a ton of questions in here. Your quiz on this is when? Tomorrow. Super fun. But I think you know most of it already anyway, so we're just doing a quick little review today. And the answer key for this is just on the very back of this little package here. Okay?
Page.